The mansion was alive with music, laughter, and the clinking of expensive glasses. Crystal chandeliers reflected the golden lights, and waiters in black uniforms moved quickly through the crowd, carrying trays of champagne and exotic hors d'oeuvres. This was the world of Alex Stone, a man whose wealth was only rivaled by his arrogance. Tonight, he was at the center of attention, as usual. Alex stood near the grand staircase, his tailored suit sharp, his hair perfectly styled, and his smile confident. Around him, a group of his closest friends laughed at his stories of yachts, private jets, and business deals that had made him one of the richest men in the city. But Alex was not just wealthy. He was famous for his bravado and his belief that he could do anything and win at anything. "Listen," Alex said, raising his glass. "I can marry anyone I want, and I can make a bet. I'll prove it tonight." His friends leaned closer, intrigued and amused. They knew Alex's confidence was legendary, but this claim made even them raise their eyebrows. "Anyone?" asked one of his friends, a tall man with a smug smile. "Even the ones nobody notices?" Alex's grin widened. "Exactly. Even the ones nobody notices." He scanned the room casually, as if looking for a prize in a field. Then, his eyes landed on her. Emma. She was standing alone near the grand piano, holding a glass of water, watching the party with quiet curiosity. She was a plus-size woman, confident in her own way, and utterly unbothered by the whispers or stares she received from some of the guests. While many people ignored her, Alex's eyes locked onto hers immediately. There was something in the way she carried herself that caught his attention. Alex turned to his friends with a mischievous glint in his eyes. "I will marry her." The words were loud, clear, and filled with pride. "And I bet you all, she won't say no." A few friends laughed nervously. Some chuckled openly. "Are you serious, Alex?" one asked, barely able to hold back a laugh. "Her." "Yes, her," Alex replied confidently. "She doesn't even know who I am. I'll win this, just watch." Across the room, Emma's eyes widened slightly when she heard Alex's words. She had overheard him, the bet, the laughter, the arrogance. Yet, she didn't react immediately. Instead, she smiled quietly to herself, a small, mysterious smile that no one else noticed. It was a smile that hinted she knew something Alex did not. As the laughter continued around him, Alex made his way toward Emma. His friends watched with a mix of amusement and curiosity. They expected her to be shocked, maybe even offended. But when Alex approached, Emma's calm presence was almost intimidating. "Hello," Alex said, flashing his most charming smile. "I'm Alex Stone." Emma looked at him, her eyes steady and confident. "Hello," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "Emma." Alex extended his hand, which she shook lightly. There was a pause, not an awkward one, but a moment full of tension. Alex was used to people reacting to him with awe, fear, or at least admiration. But Emma's reaction was nothing like that. She was unshaken. "So," Alex said, trying to sound casual, "I hear this is my lucky night." He motioned to the party around them. "I make a bet, and I always win. What do you think?" Emma raised an eyebrow slightly. "A bet?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. "And what is this bet about?" Alex's grin widened. "I bet I can marry you. I bet you won't say no. And I bet you'll look at me the same way you look at everyone else, surprised, maybe even doubtful." Emma's lips curved into that quiet, mysterious smile again. "Interesting," she said. Then, without saying more, she turned slightly, taking a small sip of her drink. Her calmness was deliberate, almost like she was testing him. Alex felt a flicker of something unfamiliar, curiosity, maybe even a little unease. Nobody ever reacted like this. Nobody. Usually, people either flattered him or laughed at him, but Emma was different. She didn't react the way he expected, and that made her intriguing. He glanced back at his friends, who were now watching the scene unfold. They whispered among themselves, some laughing, some shaking their heads. "She'll say no," one friend muttered. "There's no way she'll accept that bet." Alex shook his head slightly, confident. "She will," he said. "I always win." But deep down, a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. Emma's calm demeanor, the quiet confidence in her eyes, and that enigmatic smile. It was all new to him. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt uncertain. As the night went on, Alex stayed near Emma, talking, laughing, and trying to impress her. But no matter what he said, she remained poised, occasionally giving a small smile or a quiet laugh, never showing awe, fear, or submission. The audience watching this story unfold would begin to wonder, will Emma accept the bet? Why is she so confident? Does she know something that Alex doesn't? And most importantly, what happens next in this high-stakes game between arrogance and mystery? The mansion glittered with lights, the music played, and Alex continued to charm, unaware that tonight was not just a party. It was the beginning of a challenge he had never faced before. Emma was calm, collected, and entirely unpredictable. And as Alex plotted his next move, the audience knew one thing for certain. Nothing in Alex's life would ever be the same again. The morning after the party, the mansion was quiet. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, Alex Stone woke with a sense of excitement. Last night's events played in his mind repeatedly. The bet. Emma. Her calm smile. Most women he met would have been flustered, impressed, or intimidated. But not her. She had remained steady, almost untouchable. That thought both thrilled and unnerved him. Alex could not wait. He had decided to approach Emma officially about the bet. He imagined her saying yes with hesitation, then falling for him, eventually proving his claim that he could marry anyone he chose. After all, he was Alex Stone, rich, confident, and charming. He was unstoppable. Meanwhile, across town, Emma sat at her small kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading a book. The sunlight streamed through the window, highlighting her calm face. She had thought about Alex all night, but not the way he might expect. She had heard the bet clearly and understood exactly what it meant. And she had made her decision. When Alex arrived at her apartment later that morning, his arrival itself made him feel triumphant. He knocked on the door, flashing the same confident smile he had shown at the party. "Good morning," Alex said smoothly as Emma opened the door. "I hope you slept well." Emma looked at him calmly, as though nothing could shake her. "Good morning," she replied. "I did, thank you. And you?" "Never better," Alex said, stepping inside confidently. He looked around the modest apartment, a stark contrast to his lavish mansion. But he barely noticed. His eyes were on her. "I want to talk to you about last night," he said, casually, as if it were a business meeting. Emma crossed her arms and leaned against the counter, her calm presence filling the room. "I'm listening," she said softly. Alex took a deep breath. "I made a bet. A very interesting bet. And I would like to make it official. I want to marry you." He watched her closely, waiting for the reaction he had expected. Shock, laughter, maybe even anger. Instead, Emma simply smiled. It was not a smile of surprise or confusion. It was quiet, confident, and thoughtful. "I accept," she said. Alex blinked. You accept?" he asked, astonished. "You know it's a bet, right?" Emma nodded. "I know, but I accept on my own terms." Her eyes met his steadily. "I don't belong to anyone's bet, and I will not play the part of someone's trophy. If you want to marry me, it must be genuine, and you must respect me." Alex's friends would have laughed at her boldness if they were here. Most people would have been terrified to say this to him. But Emma was different. Her confidence was quiet but absolute, and it made Alex both intrigued and slightly uneasy. "Terms?" Alex asked, trying to hide his surprise. "What terms?" Emma smiled faintly. "We take it slow. You do not control me, and you do not use this marriage to prove anything to anyone, especially to your friends." Alex felt a flicker of frustration. He was not used to being challenged, especially not in his world of money, power, and charm. Yet, beneath that frustration, curiosity and excitement grew. A part of him wanted to know what she was planning, how she thought, and why she remained so calm. Over the next few days, Emma began to show Alex that she was not like anyone he had ever met. She asked questions that made him think, challenged his assumptions, and never reacted the way he expected. She carried herself with intelligence, wit, and an air of mystery that made him constantly aware of her presence. Alex tried to impress her, using his wealth and charm. He bought flowers, planned elaborate dinners, and even arranged small surprises. But Emma's reactions were measured. She smiled when impressed, but never too much. She laughed when amused, but never at his expense. And sometimes she simply observed, silently making him question his own motives and actions. Friends of Alex, meanwhile, could not believe it. When they heard that Emma had accepted the bet, they whispered and laughed among themselves. "She's too smart for him," one friend muttered. "He won't know what hit him." Another said, "She's calm, but I think she's planning something. Watch, this isn't over." Emma, however, seemed unfazed by all the gossip. She walked with purpose, spoke with clarity, and always maintained that quiet confidence. Every time Alex thought he had the upper hand, she subtly reminded him he did not. Alex felt a strange mix of excitement and frustration. He was used to winning, used to control, and used to people being predictable. Emma broke all those rules. She had accepted his bet, yes, but she was not a passive participant. She was a player in her own right, intelligent, confident, and mysterious. The audience watching this story would begin to wonder, what is Emma planning? Will Alex be able to handle her wit and intelligence? Will the bet really end the way he expects? Or is Emma about to turn the game completely around? As days passed, Alex realized that marrying Emma was not going to be simple. She challenged him in subtle ways every day, asking questions about his business ethics, teasing him about his arrogance, and showing glimpses of knowledge he could not explain. He had thought this bet was simple, but Emma had already changed the rules, without even saying a word. And the story, as the audience would soon discover, was only beginning. The wedding was a grand affair, a mix of luxury, elegance, and high society glamour. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, and a string quartet played softly as guests whispered and admired the event. Alex Stone looked every bit the successful, confident man he always was, but even he could not hide the slight tension in his eyes. Emma, calm and composed, moved through the crowd with quiet grace. Unlike the others, she seemed unaffected by the glittering dresses, expensive jewelry, or flattery around her. The honeymoon that followed was set in a tropical paradise. White sand beaches stretched for miles. Turquoise waves lapped gently against the shore, and the sun set in breathtaking colors every evening. Most newlyweds would have been lost in romance, soaking in the luxury and beauty. But for Alex, the honeymoon quickly became something unexpected. At first, he thought it was simple. He would charm Emma, make her feel special, and continue the bet he had won at the party. But Emma did not behave as he expected. She noticed small things, his arrogance, his assumptions, and his tendency to underestimate others, and she began to challenge him in ways he could not ignore. On the second day, as they lounged by the infinity pool, Alex offered her a glass of champagne. "To us," he said, with a confident smile. Emma accepted the glass, but sipped slowly, looking at him with steady eyes. "To us," she repeated, her tone calm, but with a hint of amusement. Alex leaned back, trying to impress her with stories of his business ventures, his yachts, and his luxurious travels. He expected her to be amazed, maybe even intimidated. But Emma listened quietly, sometimes nodding politely, sometimes smiling faintly, but never overly impressed. "Alex," she said finally, placing her glass on the table, "you talk a lot about wealth and success. But do you know what really matters to people?" Alex blinked. I think I do," he replied, trying to hide his confusion. "Success, power, recognition, things everyone wants." Emma shook her head gently. "Not exactly. People want respect, honesty, and someone who sees them as equals. Money can help, but it cannot replace those things." Alex felt a strange twinge in his chest. Nobody had spoken to him like this before. Most people flattered him, admired him, or nodded in agreement. But Emma challenged him calmly, with intelligence and quiet authority. The days continued, and Emma's subtle actions began to change the dynamic between them. At dinner, she would ask questions that made Alex pause. Questions about his decisions, his past choices, and even his intentions in life. She did not attack him, but her questions were precise, intelligent, and difficult to answer. One evening, while walking along the beach, Emma pointed out a local community center in the distance. "Do you see that building?" she asked. "Many people here don't have your wealth, but they work hard and care for others. Do you ever think about them?" Alex tried to respond, but she continued. "I'm not asking you to give them money. I'm asking you to see beyond yourself, Alex. To notice the world around you. Most people never do." Alex felt both frustrated and intrigued. He was used to being the center of attention, used to controlling situations, and used to people agreeing with him. Emma challenged all of that. She was not just different. She was a mirror, showing him his flaws in a way he could not ignore. Even during leisure activities, Emma subtly embarrassed him. On a golf course, she pointed out his mistakes in technique with precision. At a cooking class, she executed a recipe perfectly while he struggled, all while keeping a calm smile. Friends back home would have found these moments amusing if they saw them. But Alex was growing increasingly aware that Emma was quietly winning the real game. Her confidence never wavered. Every time Alex tried to assert dominance or show off his wealth, Emma responded with calm intelligence, never arrogance. Her mysterious smile reminded him that she was fully aware of his intentions, yet she chose not to confront him directly, at least, not yet. The honeymoon was meant to be a time for romance and celebration, but for Alex, it had become a subtle battlefield. Emma was teaching him lessons without harsh words or confrontation. And Alex, for the first time in his life, felt uncertain about the outcome. The audience watching would sense the tension. Alex had believed this marriage was a simple bet, a game he would win. But Emma's subtle moves, quiet intelligence, and calm confidence hinted at a bigger plan. She was changing him slowly but surely, and the audience would be left wondering, what will she do next? Will Alex realize her power before it is too late? As the sun set each evening, painting the sky in orange and pink, Alex would watch Emma walk along the shore, her posture straight, her head held high, and her calm smile on her face. He could not deny it. She was different, stronger, and more capable than he had imagined. The honeymoon, meant to celebrate a bet, had instead become the stage for the first signs of change. Emma was not just a participant in this story. She was the force that would soon turn the tables. And Alex, confident millionaire though he was, had no idea how much his life was about to shift. Alex thought he knew everything. His wealth, power, and influence had always given him control over people and situations. But Emma was different. She had married him as part of his bet, yet she was no ordinary partner. She was calm, intelligent, and mysterious. And slowly, Alex began to sense that she knew more about him than anyone else ever had. It started with small comments. One evening, as they sat in the mansion's library, Emma casually mentioned, "I read about companies that cut corners to make more profit. Some decisions hurt more people than they help." Alex laughed lightly, thinking she was speaking in general terms. Business is complicated. You can't always make everyone happy. Emma's eyes, however, were sharp and focused. Some people notice when things are done unfairly. Even small mistakes can be remembered for years. Sometimes, people around you whisper about the things you think are hidden. Alex felt a chill. It was not just her words. It was the calm certainty behind them. She spoke as if she already knew his secrets, yet she did not accuse him directly. It was subtle, almost like a warning. Over the next few days, Emma's subtle observations became more pointed. She noticed discrepancies in Alex's statements about his businesses. She questioned decisions he had made, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that made him pause and reflect. Her calm voice hit a sharp mind that seemed to see everything clearly. Then came the turning point. One afternoon, Alex invited Emma to his office, hoping to impress her with his latest business deal. As he began explaining the project, Emma interrupted softly, "Alex, this deal, the last one, didn't it involve bending some rules? You were lucky no one noticed back then." Alex froze. How could she know? He had never told anyone about that deal, or the consequences he had narrowly avoided. His mind raced, trying to understand if she was bluffing. But the look in her eyes was unwavering. She knew. Emma continued calmly, "I'm not judging you. I just want you to see that your actions have consequences, even if they are hidden for now. People remember more than you think. Alex felt a mix of fear and admiration. Fear, because she had discovered something about his life he thought was private. Admiration, because she handled the truth with grace and intelligence. Most people would have laughed, screamed, or panicked in her position. But Emma remained calm. She never raised her voice, never mocked him. Yet she had power over him in a way no one ever had. Over dinner that night, Emma discussed more sensitive topics. She spoke about humility, integrity, and awareness, weaving her words into casual conversation. Alex found himself listening more carefully than ever before. He wanted to challenge her, to regain control, but her calm presence made him hesitant. Days passed, and Alex realized that Emma was not just his wife. She was a teacher, guiding him in subtle, intelligent ways. He could not predict her next move, and that uncertainty made him restless. Each question she asked, each observation she made, left him thinking long after she had spoken. Even in social situations, Emma's subtle influence became apparent. At a charity gala, Alex tried to impress the guests with stories of his wealth and generosity. Emma listened, smiling softly. Later, she leaned toward him and whispered, "Sometimes the quietest gestures matter more than the loudest words." People notice kindness more than extravagance. Alex felt humbled without even realizing it. Emma had not shouted, not embarrassed him. Yet she had made him rethink his actions, his motives, and even his sense of superiority. The audience watching this story would feel the tension growing. Alex, the confident millionaire, was slowly being challenged and changed by the very person he had married as a bet. Emma's calm intelligence, her ability to see beyond wealth and status, and her mysterious confidence hinted at a plan far bigger than anyone could imagine. At night, as Alex lay awake in their lavish bedroom, he replayed the day's events in his mind. Every conversation with Emma, every subtle challenge, every quiet observation, it all pointed to one undeniable truth. She was not just participating in the bet. She was rewriting the rules entirely. Emma, meanwhile, remained calm as ever. In her mind, she had accepted the bet not for money or status, but for a purpose. She had entered Alex's world to teach him a lesson in humility, awareness, and respect. She knew his secrets, understood his weaknesses, and was now guiding him without force, without conflict, but with precision. The tension between them grew with each passing day. Alex, used to winning every challenge, was beginning to understand that this was a game he could not control. And Emma, serene and confident, watched as the man who had thought he could marry anyone as a bet started to realize that the true power in their marriage was not in money, not in charm, and not in arrogance. It was in awareness, intelligence, and calm confidence. As the audience followed the story, they would be left wondering, what will Emma do next? How far will she take this lesson? And will Alex finally understand that the bet he thought he had won was already lost in ways he could never have predicted? The hidden truth was no longer just about wealth or status. It was about insight, humility, and the quiet power of a woman who knew exactly how to change a man without ever raising her voice. And so, the real game had begun, a battle of minds, subtle challenges, and the slow unraveling of arrogance. Alex Stone, the millionaire, was about to learn that some victories were never about winning money or proving a point. Some victories were about realizing the truth before it was too late. The city's grand ballroom was alive with chatter, music, and the soft glow of chandeliers. Tonight was a charity gala, attended by politicians, business leaders, and socialites. Alex Stone walked through the crowd with his usual confident smile. He was used to commanding attention, impressing everyone, and being admired wherever he went. But tonight, something felt different. Emma walked beside him, calm and composed, her posture straight, her expression serene. Guests whispered as they noticed her elegance. But unlike Alex, she did not seek attention. She did not flaunt her beauty or wealth. Yet there was an undeniable aura around her, intelligence, confidence, and quiet strength. Alex thought he had everything under control. He planned to show Emma off as the perfect wife, the one who had accepted his bet, to impress his friends and the social crowd. He imagined them all admiring his choice, laughing at his cleverness, and congratulating him on winning yet another challenge. But Emma had other plans. As the evening progressed, Alex tried to charm the guests with stories of his business deals and luxurious lifestyle. He spoke with confidence, expecting nods of admiration and polite laughter. Emma listened, her gaze steady. Then, at a quiet moment, she leaned slightly toward Alex and whispered a comment that made his confident smile falter. "You say a lot about success and wealth," she said softly. "But do you notice the people around you? Do you see who they really are?" Alex blinked. "Of course I do," he replied, a bit defensively. "I know what I'm doing." Emma smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Sometimes, knowing is not enough. People notice more than you think. Actions, words, attitudes, they leave an impression." As Alex continued mingling, he noticed something unusual. Guests who had always nodded politely at his boasts now exchanged subtle glances, whispered quietly, and smiled at Emma in ways that did not involve him at all. He felt a twinge of unease. For the first time, attention seemed to shift away from him. During the gala's silent auction, Alex attempted to make a grand impression. He bid aggressively on an expensive art piece, expecting admiration and envy from everyone watching. But Emma, sitting quietly beside him, surprised him again. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes the most generous gesture is not the most expensive one. It's the one that comes from sincerity." Alex frowned slightly. "I'm being generous," he said, a bit irritated. Emma's eyes met his, calm and confident. "Yes, but generosity is more than money, Alex. People notice the intention behind it." He felt a sudden realization. Guests were paying more attention to Emma than to him. She had no need to compete, no need to show off, yet her calm confidence and intelligence captivated the crowd. Every compliment she received, every curious glance, made Alex feel a growing sense of shock. Later, on the stage, the gala organizer invited couples to participate in a brief recognition ceremony for charitable contributions. Alex thought this was his moment to show off Emma as his trophy wife. But when Emma stepped onto the stage, she handled the attention with grace and wisdom. She spoke eloquently about the importance of helping others, sharing her own insights into the charity's mission. The audience applauded, not because of Alex, but because of Emma. Her calm intelligence, her sincerity, and her subtle confidence made everyone forget the millionaire standing beside her. Alex could barely believe it. He had expected to be the center of admiration, the star of the night. Instead, he realized the attention had shifted completely to Emma. Backstage, as the applause continued, Alex whispered to her, "How do you do this?" Emma's mysterious smile returned. "I'm not trying to compete, Alex. I'm just being myself." People notice authenticity. Alex felt a mixture of shock, admiration, and frustration. This was not the bet he had thought he had won. This was a reality he could not control. Emma, who had entered his life as part of his challenge, was quietly turning the tables. Even his friends noticed the change. They whispered among themselves, amazed at how Emma had captured the room. "She's incredible," one said. "Alex has no idea what's happening." Alex realized she was right. He did not know. He had underestimated her confidence, her intelligence, and her quiet power. He had thought the bet was simple. He would marry her, win admiration, and prove his claim. But Emma had already rewritten the rules. The night ended with Emma walking gracefully through the gala, shaking hands, speaking softly, and leaving lasting impressions on everyone she met. Alex followed, stunned and humbled, beginning to understand that this woman, whom he had thought was part of simple bet, was far more formidable than he could ever imagine. As they left the gala, Alex remained silent, reflecting on the night's events. Emma, calm and serene as always, looked out the window at the city lights. "You see, Alex," she said quietly, "sometimes the most surprising victories come when you least expect them." Alex nodded slowly, realizing that the bet he had thought he was winning was slipping through his fingers. The millionaire had been shocked, not by wealth, power, or status, but by the quiet intelligence and confidence of a woman who refused to be underestimated. The audience watching this story would feel the tension and excitement build. Alex, once confident and in control, was now being challenged in ways he could not predict. Emma's subtle moves, public presence, and calm mastery of every situation left viewers wondering, how far will she take this? What will happen when Alex finally understands the true power of her intelligence and confidence? The night ended, but the story was far from over. Emma had delivered the first major shock to the millionaire, and Alex, for the first time, began to question everything he thought he knew about power, control, and winning. The mansion was quiet that evening. The gala, the social attention, and the subtle shocks of the past days had left Alex in a thoughtful silence. He sat in his study, staring at the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The confidence that had carried him through every business deal, every social event, every bet seemed different now, less certain. Emma entered quietly, carrying a small cup of tea. She did not announce herself. She simply walked in, calm and graceful. Alex looked at her, his mind still spinning from the events at the gala. "You did well tonight," he said slowly. His tone was different, almost humble. "Better than I expected." Emma smiled faintly. "I did what I needed to do, Alex." "You learned something, didn't you?" Alex hesitated. He wanted to argue, to claim some victory, to regain control. But deep down, he knew she was right. The bet he had thought he was winning was never about winning in the way he imagined. It was about understanding, humility, and perspective. "What are you planning, Emma?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. Emma sat across from him. "I accepted the bet," she said softly, "not for money, not for fame, not for status. I accepted it to teach a lesson, to show you that life is more than arrogance, power, and winning. That real victories come from understanding, respect, and awareness." Alex felt a heavy realization. For weeks, he had tried to impress her, control the situation, and maintain his usual dominance. But Emma had quietly, patiently, and cleverly changed the game. She had used her calm intelligence, subtle actions, and public presence to make him see things he had never noticed before. I didn't expect this," Alex admitted, his voice low. "I thought this was just a bet, a game. But you've changed everything." Emma nodded. "Yes, and you've learned something important. Confidence and wealth are nothing without awareness and humility." Alex remained silent, reflecting on all the small moments, the calm conversations, the subtle challenges, the quiet public shock she had delivered at the gala. Each had chipped away at his arrogance, teaching him lessons he never realized he needed. Finally, Emma stood and walked to the door. She paused and looked back at him. "I don't want you to forget this, Alex. The lesson is yours to keep. But remember, humility and understanding are earned, not bought. And respect, real respect, is never about money or status." With that, she left the room, leaving Alex staring at the door. The mansion felt emptier, quieter, yet heavier with understanding. He realized that in all his life he had never lost a bet, never been humbled like this, never had someone teach him in such a subtle, intelligent, and effective way. The audience watching this story would feel the tension and satisfaction of the climax. Emma, the woman who had entered his life as part of bet, had become the force that taught Alex the most important lesson of all. She did not humiliate him loudly, nor did she shame him publicly in a harsh way. Her victory was quiet, profound, and lasting. Days passed, and Alex began to change. He listened more carefully, noticed details he had once ignored, and approached life with a humility he had never known before. Emma remained calm, her mysterious confidence a constant reminder of what true intelligence and awareness could achieve. Occasionally, Alex would watch her and think back to the first moment he saw her at the party, the calm, confident smile that had hinted at everything to come. He realized then that the real shock of the bet was not her acceptance, not the public admiration she had gained, but the lesson she had quietly, patiently delivered. The millionaire had entered the marriage expecting to win a simple bet, but the outcome was far more profound. Emma had transformed the game entirely, and in doing so, She left Alex with a humbling truth. The most important victories are not about proving power or control, but about understanding oneself and the world around you. As Emma walked through the mansion that evening, Alex followed quietly. He did not speak. Words were unnecessary. He had learned the lesson, and it would stay with him forever. The audience would be left with a mix of surprise and satisfaction. They had watched a story about a bet, wealth, and arrogance unfold into a tale of intelligence, subtle power, and personal transformation. Emma, calm, confident, and wise, had won in a way that was both shocking and deeply satisfying. And Alex, the millionaire, understood at last that sometimes the greatest victories are not the ones you win with money or charm, but the ones you never see coming, the ones that change you completely, quietly, and forever. The story ended, but the lesson lingered. Humility, awareness, and respect cannot be bought. They are earned, and sometimes taught by someone you least expect.